certainly the strength, anyone can agree with me, is that looks. It's obviously a beautiful looking aeroplane. It's the visibility was good, not as good as we would when we got to F-16s and that type of thing.
Yes.
But it was very good for when it came to, when I came back to the Hunter, we did quite a bit of dogfighting, ACM, and it was good for that. Handling, absolutely amazing handling. You know, it was light on the controls and very easy. It was a delight to fly. After my the first solo was quite exciting because there was a lot going on, and I was sitting on the tail somewhere, but I eventually managed to get it down. But after it was very, very good to fly, very easy to fly. Incredible acceleration. When I got to the Mirage, in my first, you know, when you go to full power and release brakes, you expect this thump. But actually, the Hunter was a bigger acceleration than it was at military thrust outbound. Yeah, only when you got into afterburner it was different. Very comfortable low-level flying, which was very important for us. We did a lot of low-level flying, photo recce as well, because we needed that with the sort of flying we're doing. And you can happily fly along at 500 knots comfortably without, and especially in Africa with all the heat and everything, very, very comfortable to fly. And then a bit of well, I should say one more thing about it, which we'll probably come on to at some stage. I've heard you talk about your A-10 Warthog pilots. The Hunter's front gun, 30 millimeter, four of them firing together, is second only to the Warthog in firepower, I believe.
Wow.
And yeah, I experienced that in dramatically, or dramatically, I should say. When we did a strike once, in our first big strike in the war, and we were taking a bend in the river, and there were 5 of us, and we went in, and we fired our rockets first. They're all the both pods from each of us. One strike, we came around, and there was fairly bit of dust around. After 5 of us had gone through with full front gun, that was it. We fired 9 seconds each. There was 540 rounds each, and there was nothing on the ground. It was just demolished. It felt like riding my horse when I was doing it, but it was amazing firepower. So that was really an enormous strength in the aircraft, which I believe was designed to be able to climb out, take out a bomber, a bare bomber. And I was confirmed that by the RAF guys. That's what its original role was. But it did a wonderful job for us.
That's
but the weaknesses, the weaknesses, if anything, these are sort of personal. The stick was really high. And that was, to me, it was a big thing because it even covered your compass. And I only assumed because the aircraft had manual reversion, if you lost your hydraulics, you could then fly it. But obviously it was heavy at that stage, and I could only assume that it was the leverage that you required. And it became very apparent to me once, and I lost a booster pump on one side, and all the fuel hung up in my drop tank. Oh. So I came home flying like this, and I could actually see my compass for the first time. When I bought my Hunter, and I was hoping to get it flying, we can talk about that a bit later. A friend of mine bought a 2-seater in Australia, and I flew that for him. But I decided if I ever got mine flying, I was going to get permission from CASA, or the local authority, was to actually be able to split the control column and drop it, and put a split pin in. And so I could fly down here as opposed to having it as the way it was. And as we'll talk about the Mirage. That's how it was. And then if I lost my control, my power controls, I could take it up and put the pin on the top. Anyway, that was, to me, was a weakness. The second week was a lot more dramatic. We lost one Hunter when I was a technician. The guy was just flying past the city, and he lost all his fuel. Basically, the fuel gauge just went down. Wow. And it worked out it was a metal pipe that went from the booster pumps to the engine, and that had burst. It happened a second time to one of our guys. He managed to dead stick it to land much later. But I mentioned that again because when I came to fly the Hunter here, the 2-seater, it took 7 years to restore it. And just before we flew it, I went to the engineer. We had one guy basically restored this thing. And I said to him, that pipe that goes from the booster pump to the engine, that I'm feeling as a weakness. He said, come with me. He showed me the old one. He put a new one in. So they obviously realized. So that was a weakness. But other than that, the cockpit layouts, people have perhaps spoken about that. Ergonomically, it was a nightmare. We bought some from Kenya later. And the chap who came, one of the majors in the Kenyan Air Force, came up to me. He said, "Do you fly? Are you coming to get the hunters?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I love flying the hunter." He said, "But what are they doing?" You've heard the story before. They got all the instruments and threw it over the shoulder. And wherever they landed, that's what them. Because he was flying the F-5 Tiger, and that's just an example of that. Yeah. We only had an ADF. Only navigation equipment we had on our hunters was an ADF, and it was one of those coffee grinder ones. Mm-hmm. And it was way down the back here on the right. So now you're in bad weather. You've got to take your hand off the throttle, off the control panel, put your hand off the throttle, and then wind this thing up to get the, So that was, anyway, that's by the by. But the strength far outweighed the weaknesses as far as I'm concerned.